Hi, my morbid pals. Today we're taking a full-on plunge into Dante's Inferno and the 9 circles of hell. Limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, heresy, violence, fraud, and treachery. And the circles just get more terrifying and gruesome the further down we go. The book, of course, doesn't only talk about Inferno, it's also about Purgatory and Paradisio, heaven. But we're talking about the fun part, I guess. Inferno! Let's dive into it, circle by circle.
Morbid history.
Intro. Dante and Virgil. First, we need to look upon the poet who dreamt up all of these lovely and grisly torments that we're gonna go into, Dante Alighieri. Born in 1265, he was an Italian poet living in Florence. It was after Dante was exiled for siding with the wrong political faction that he penned the Divine Comedy. And that was just an epic fan fiction, if you will, that would immortalize his frustrations, philosophies, and religious ideas. The poem spans all the way from hell, purgatory, and paradisio, heaven. But today we're gonna focus on the fun part. Inferno, hell. Dante is indeed our protagonist and also author, of course, of the Divine Comedy. But another important person here is Virgil, an ancient Roman poet. And he comes to serve as a guide to Dante through hell and purgatory. Dante probably chose Virgil for this task because he admired him as an epitome of reason, intellect, and wisdom, kinda embodying what he thought was the virtues of ancient Rome. Dante really loved Rome, ancient Rome. We're gonna see more of that. And as thus, Virgil does represent human reason, which is an essential force to navigate through hell's horrors and such, and resist sin. So, now we're gonna tag along on Dante's and Virgil's most excellent adventure. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here, the road to hell. Before Dante and Virgil even come to the first circle, they need to pass 3 other places, and that is the dark wood, the gates of hell, and the vestibule, where we find the first lost souls. So, when the story begins, we find Dante in the dark woods. That's a dark and tangled up forest that would symbolize sin, confusion, and spiritual crisis. Dante is spooked, scared, and tries to run up a hill to get somewhere out of there, but he is stopped by 3 fierce beasts. 1, a leopard, associated with lust and fraud. 2, a lion, associated with pride and violence. And 3, a she-wolf, representing greed. But this is here that to his aid, Virgil plops up. Offering a comforting light, guiding light, he takes Dante away from the dark woods and forward to the gates of hell. And so they shuffle along to the next destination, the gates, which read on top of it, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Dante, again, spooked, this is all very new to him, gets some encouraging words from Virgil, and they go as thus. "Here you must leave all distrust behind, here you must put away all cowardice." Virgil also hammers down the fact that Dante has to go through all this if he wants to find solace and get salvation at the end of it. So Dante really has no choice, does he? And they go through the gates. Beyond the gates, they find the third place and the first lost souls. It's the place called the vestibules, where the opportunists end up. So this was the place for people who couldn't commit to being evil or good. They would live only for themselves. their own satisfaction. As Virgil states it for them, these have no hope of death, the world will not record them. These poor souls, the opportunists, are forever condemned to run over icky ground covered in maggots, chasing a meaningless blank banner which they will never get a hold of, while flyy things that sting you and flies bite and sting them. Here you would also find the angels who did not choose sides during the war between God and Satan. Even the fallen angels would end up here. So these souls weren't even in hell proper, rather in outer realm lingering on there, denied both heaven and hell due to their indecisive nature and self-serving lives. As Virgil states, they're condemned to an eternity of purposeless chasing. Fun. But now they need to cross over into Inferno. And to do that, they need to cross the river Acheron. And to do that, he needs to jump on the boat of the mythological demonic ferryman Charon. It's so funny how he mixes in Greek mythology in this very Catholic Christian epic. But there you go. Initially, Charon refuses to take on Dante because Dante is still alive and that is a living soul, and that goes against everything. God damn it. And that goes against everything that he's supposed to do. But Virgil, he just goes on and says, hey, we're here on a mission of God. God sent us. And Charon, he's okay with that and takes them on his little boat. And off they go. As they're going, they pass a very steep cliff. And this is where Dante looks down and gets his first glimpse of Inferno. Beyond all the suffering that he's able to see from the first circles, the most harrowing aspect is the sound of all the souls crying. From the heights, he hears a continuous wail of suffering, a cacophony of agonized screams and groans of despair, just into a giant mess of sounds. And when they get to shore, before them they finally see Inferno, a series of circles forming a downward cone of descending rings. Let's dive into the first circle of Inferno. Like, comment and subscribe, it really helps the algorithm. Thank you. Circle 1, Limbo, the virtuous pagans.
There, insofar as listening could tell me, the only lamentations were the sighs, yet they made the eternal air tremble.
Reason for entry, living a virtuous life but without Christian faith or baptism. Punishment, eternal yearning without physical torment. So, jumping straight on into our circles of hell, we go to Limbo, and that is the gentlest of all the circles. Here roam the virtuous pagans, souls who lived honorable lives but missed one important checkpoint, baptism. Because of course these people lived before Christianity even became the biggest thing ever, so they didn't even have the option to adore the Lord, as some say. I'm an atheist, so I don't know. Either way, this includes lots of wonderful ancient people, especially Romans that we know that Dante loved so much. We meet Homer, Aristotle, and of course Julius Caesar, because he was not a Christian, but he was pretty dang cool in Dante's speak. Anyway, so in Limbo there is no physical torment at all. It's just the soft ache of knowing that you're just stuck there and nothing will change. You won't be able to go to heaven, not even hell. You're just stuck forever in this little gray world. So you're living your same life, basically, just grayer forever. Imagine just A garden in twilight with all your favorite ancient philosophers longing together for something that will not happen. Some notable people stuck in limbo was actually our lovely guide Virgil. He was one of these virtuous pagans. And then we had all those lovely ancient Greek and Roman philosophers and authors. Here's where the fan fiction comes in though. It's when Dante arrives in Limbo, all these big famous ancient dudes just come up to Dante and are in awe of Dante. They think like, wow, you're so great. You're one of us, just as famous and awesome. It was so nice to meet you. So yeah, historical fan fiction. Awesome Dante. They just loved him so much. And here's the proof. His book that he wrote. But turning from Limbo, let's go to the second circle. Circle 2. Lust. Swept away in desire.
I have come to a place where every light is silenced, which roars just as the sea roars in a storm when it is beaten by conflicting winds.
Reason for entry. Being swept up by passions and acting on uncontrolled desires. Punishment. Endless tossing in a violent storm, separated from those they love. Onward we go to the second circle, lust. Here are the souls of the lustful that are caught in relentless swirling storms. And why? Because in life they let their passions toss them about. So now they're basically stuck forever in a personal tornado that they can never escape. One famous couple that Dante meets here is Francesca and Paolo. They are a couple who fell in love and did some deeds, and that's not the bad part. Paolo was Francesca's husband's brother, and when the husband caught them together, he demised them both. So, not a good thing for the church, and thus they ended up here, forever just twirling about in storms, unable to reach each other. Longing, torment, the sweet whispers of love turning into screams in this relentless hurricane. Other notable people that Dante meets in this circle is Cleopatra, because she was an enemy of Rome, and also Helen of Troy, because she made a whole mess. Okay, I understand that I just brushed through Helen there, but of course the reason she was there was because, well, famously she was known as the beauty that launched 1,000 ships. And in Dante's view, she represents the devastating consequences of unchecked lust. And of course she had an affair with Paris. Even though history sees Helen more as a victim of consequences, Dante firmly condemns her to be a big part to the whole fiasco, so that's why she's there. And when it comes to Cleopatra, of course, she is, as we know, known as a very lustful and sensual lady, so no big surprises there. So that's that. Now let's get on to Circle 3. Circle 3. Gluttony. A feast of filth.
We passed over the shadows which were beaten under the heavy rain. We put the soles of our feet down on the empty shapes, which looks like bodies.
Reason for entry. Living a life of excess, focused solely on indulgence and consumption. Punishment. Forced to wallow in filth, while being gnawed at by the three-headed dog. Cheers! Let's jump into Circle 3, Gluttony. Down this third circle, gluttons lay beneath a constant freezing rain, where they just wallow around in putrid mud. These are the souls that just lived to gorge on food in excess, and their punishment now is to be gorged upon themselves by the three-headed dog Cerberus. This three-headed dog from hell would just bite and maul them into pieces over and over, and since you're already in hell and you can't demise again, you would either just lay there completely destroyed, or over the hundreds of years get back together into one piece only to be ripped apart or gorged by Cerberus again. So in short, those who ate too much in life will now be eaten in return over and over for eternity. Many of these lost souls that lied around there in filth under the freezing rain of hail and snow and just yay, they actually started just to lie flat on the icky muddy ground, pretending to already be mauled and dead, so that Cerberus would not take them. So even after demise, it looks like their brains were working at least. Just a filthy mess of being eaten, mauled and gored, over and over, never to escape. So with that, let's continue to our next circle. Circle 4, Greed, weighed by wealth.
Here the biggest crowd had come together, with great hounds from one side and the other, and rolling heavy weights forward against their chests.
Reason for entry: greed, whether through hoarding wealth or wasteful spending. Punishment: push in heavy weights, symbolizing their burdensome materialism. And so we roll into Circle 4, Greed. Here, those who were extremely greedy in life are condemned to push heavy weights around, and these heavy weights are usually in art depicted as giant, huge money bags that they just roll and roll and roll, sometimes up a hill and sometimes just in circles. But that's not it. That's not all of it. There's two types of greed that share punishment here in this circle. It's the ones who hoarded wealth and those who squandered wealth. And these two fractions are in a never-ending battle. They would push their weights onto each other and just full-on war, battle. They would be throwing insults and angry comments towards each other, like, "Why do you hoard?" and "Why do you waste?" Yeah, they're just stuck there in this eternal battle with each other, never to find any peace or even profit. We can all guess, of course, that the weights that they are pushing around symbolizes the heavy burden of the wealth that they so sorely needed in life. And that passion for those riches, or hoarding the riches, or spending the riches, was now just dead weight. Another fun fact was that since they were stuck in this eternal battle with each other, they had been beaten to pulps. This is one of the places where Dante can't recognize not even one person, because all those hundreds of years of infighting and just pushing these weights on each other has left them looking extremely disfigured, just masses of flesh going at it. It is stated though, even if we can't recognize them for their personal self, that this circle was filled with corrupt clergymen and corrupt officials. So, Dante did not approve of the church amassing wealth and power. So that's one of the reasons these particular people ended up in this lovely little place. On to our next circle. Circle 5, wrath, the rage of the river Styx.
And I, who stood there looking down intently, saw people covered in mud there in the swamp, all naked and with anger in their faces.
Reason for entry: unchecked anger, whether through violent outbursts or silent resentment. Punishment: violent, wrathful fight on the surface, and the sullen, wrathful drown beneath. So, in our next circle, we reach the swampy, stinking, dark waters of the river Styx. This is the place for the wrathful who thrash around in endless rage. And here again we have two different wraths. First we have the violent wrathfuls, and those like claw and just bicker and fight on the surface, like just an endless rage-induced bar fight, but in a murky swamp. But underneath the surface of this river Styx, we have the ones that are called the sullen. Those were the bad-tempered and resentful, gloomy, not so nice people. They languish just beneath the surface or even at the bottom, trapped in muddy silence, never able to get up to the surface, as Virgil states of them, into a black sulkiness which can find no joy in God or man or the universe. So, in summary, we have the first ones, the openly wrathful, those who lashed out in life, are now suffering an endless brawl. And on the other hand, those who suppressed their fury, being totally unable to be pleasant to anything or anyone, they are now just drowning, unable to express themselves because they're just choking on their own rage down there. One fun encounter that Dante had here in the river Styx. A man called Filippo Argentini, and he was an enemy of Dante, a nemesis. His family was thoroughly against Dante's family. And this Filippo was also known to be someone with a very violent temper. Filippo comes up to the boat that Dante and Virgil are crossing the river with and tries to reach out to Dante. But Dante is very cold, stoic, and does not try to help him or hold him, and then sees Filippo being dragged off by the other violent spirits, whom then go ahead and rip him to shreds. And to that Dante says as thus: "In weeping and in grieving, accursed spirit, may you long remain." Once you made Dante an enemy, that's all you'll ever be. And with that, on to the next one. City of Dis, the capital of hell. After crossing the river Styx, Dante and Virgil arrive at the gates of Dis, which is like the capital of hell. A vast, imposing fortress, a giant one that marks the transition between upper and lower hell. The levels we've already talked about are levels 1 to 5, and those are the circles that house sins of weakness, vices, and just sins in general that don't affect the masses, usually just 1 or 2 people, so they're not seen as terrible as the circles that are inside of the city of Dis. That's where the terrifying punishments really lurk, waiting. So yeah, the lower parts inside of City of These are circles 6 to 9, each housing sinners who were malicious, fraudulent, and whose acts were very deliberate, betraying human decency and the divine order itself. So, the worst of the worst. That's where we're going now. But first, they encounter a bit of a hurdle. The towering iron gates are guarded by fallen angels, demonic creatures, and they do indeed refuse travelers to pass, especially people who aren't even demised, aka Dante. So of course, these rebellious spirits, remnants of the war in heaven, mock both Virgil and Dante and deny them any kind of entry, making things just a tad difficult. And to top it all off, suddenly the three Furies just pop up from behind the gates, covered in blood and snakes, threatening to summon Medusa of all people. People don't want that. Or I mean Dante and Virgil especially don't want that. Because if Medusa comes there and turns them to stone, they will never ever be able to leave Inferno. As thus, the situation grows increasingly dire here. But of course, when all hope seems lost, a heavenly messenger comes from the sky, from the heavens, walking with calm authority through all that chaos that has been brewing for the last minutes, hour. I have no idea about the timeline here, but without a word, the divine figure just forces open the gates with a simple gesture, like, yes, angelic, indeed. The fallen angels and demons, they just scatter off, because that's like a powerful being. Even they are scared of the man upstairs. And after helping them with that, this heavenly messenger just pops away without saying any word, but at least Virgil and Dante can proceed through the gates and meet even more horrors, the worst kinds. Let's jump into our next circle. Circle 6. Heresy. Blazing tombs.
Tombs make the ground on every side uneven, so did they here, whichever way I looked, except that the fashion of them here was bitterer.
Reason for entry. Heresy, specifically denial of the soul's immortality. Punishment, encased in burning tombs, a permanent and fiery fate. So yeah, now welcome to the lowest parts and the last circles of Inferno, Hell, where we will go through the absolute worst sinners and the worst punishments. Skål! Let's get to it. Once entering the City of These, we first encounter, as I said, the Heretics. So these sinners and lost souls are trapped in a vast field of burning tombs, much like graves that are their final resting place, but encased in flames for eternity. Dante reserved this particular punishment for those who denied the soul's immortality. So like, just as in life, they did not believe in anything in the hereafter. So why not just be stuck forever in your grave, unable to actually have a hereafter, beyond burning. And here, of course, Dante does meet some frenemies, enemies, and talk to them here and there, but it's mostly about Italian politics, and, well, that's just a whole rabbit hole to go into, so sorry, I'm gonna skip that and go to the next circle. Circle 7. Violence. A trio of terrible trials.
My son within the circle of stone. He then began. There are 3 smaller circles of graduated size, like those you are leaving. All of them are filled with accursed spirits, so that later you will have only to look at them. I will explain now how and why they are there.
Reason for entry. Violence against others, oneself, or God. Punishment. Boiling blood for the violent. Twisted trees for the sewer slides. Fiery rain for the blasphemers. So now, my dear macabre comrades, we enter the 7th circle, which is dedicated to violence. But the violent people are split up into 3 different kinds of violence. There's lots of different and extremely creative punishments going on here. Either way, in violence, the 3 parts are violence against others, and those are submerged in boiling pools of blood, guarded by demonic angels, poking at them, making sure that they can't get up. Then we have the violence against yourself, which of course means self-cancellation, because your body was given to you by the Almighty upstairs, and you shouldn't be violating it, of course. And the punishment there, they were transformed into twisted trees. And not just like any tree. The tree was actually their bodies. And the reason behind that was that they did not value the body that they got in life, so they are now denied the human form that they violated. Even worse, they can't talk or communicate at all, except if one of their branches gets torn off or something like that, because then you would be gushing blood out of that tree stump and you'd be shouting in agony because it would hurt. Also, this forest of twisted trees was the home of some harpies, female bird monsters, and they really much like to eat the fruit that was growing on these human trees. And then again, we need to remember that everything that comes from these human trees are parts of themselves. So when the harpies go there and pick the fruit and eat it, it's basically eating parts of those humans. Fun. Another little detail here, a very grim one. At the final judgment day, at the end of the world or the start of the new world or whatever people believe in, when the bodies of the demised are supposed to rise from their graves and meet God and whatever, the 3 people would stay the same. They would be there in their bushy, twisted tree form, but the corpses that they violated and left behind would be hung on their branches so that they could forever just be there and see what they did to themselves for eternity. You can say a lot of things about that god fella, but he was creative. And then the third violent sinners, the ones who did violence against God, nature, people who did the things you shouldn't do with animals. People weren't really happy about same-sex thing. They ended up there. And also, moneylenders, they ended up there. Because it wasn't seen as natural to God's plan that they would lend money and put a lot of interest into that, and in such a way get unfairly enriched. A sin that was harsh enough to put you in this last spot. But what happened there? Well, they ended up in a large, burning, scorching plain. The sand was just way too hot to walk on, but they had to walk around. But not only that, flakes of fire would be raining over them like boop 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 constantly. But if they weren't walking around and for some reason just needed to rest, so they sat down or had a little lie down, they were stuck there for 100 years. They couldn't move. Great. Yep. Suffering tailored for those who defied the sacred. That was the 3 different kinds of punishments for violent people. And as thus, we move on to Circle 8. Circle 8. Fraud. The evil ditches.
The belt which this leaves therefore forms a circle between the well and the high, difficult bank, and the bottom of it has 10 distinct valleys.
Reason for entry. Engaging in deceit, lies, and manipulation. Punishment. Varies by sin, ironic and gruesome for each category of fraud. So now we enter maybe the largest of the circles, fraud. This circle is like a labyrinth of 10 pits, or ditches, as they're also called, the evil ditches. And each of these ditches punish a different type of deceit and fraud. We see flatterers sinking in excrement. You tell bullcrap, you end up in bullcrap. Kinda like that. And of course, yes, I will go through all of these 10 evil ditches, but I won't go into detail because that would just take forever. Let's go. First ditch. Panderers and seducers. Punishment. The souls in this ditch are whipped by demons as they march in a long line. The panderers and seducers are those who used others for their selfish desires, leading people astray with promises of pleasure, falsehoods, and manipulation. Second ditch. Flatterers. Punishment. These souls are submerged in human excrement, wallowing in filth. Those who used flattery for personal gain, giving insincere compliments to deceive or manipulate others. The excrement symbolizes the empty and disgusting nature of false praise. Third ditch. The demoniacs. Punishment. The simoniacs are those who bought or sold church offices or pardons, and they are placed head first into holes in the ground, with their feet set ablaze. The deeper they are buried, the more intense the flames burn their feet. Fourth ditch: sorcerers, magicians, and astrologers. Punishment: these fraudulent practitioners of magic and divination have their necks twisted backwards, so they are forced to look backwards and walk backwards. They are punished in this way because they try to look into the future and manipulate fate, which is seen as a perversion of God's divine order. Fifth ditch: corrupt politicians. Punishments: those who were involved in political corruption, bribery, and fraud are submerged in a boiling pit of tar, which they cannot escape. Demons patrol the pit, attacking those who try to rise from it. The pit represents the sticky and inescapable nature of corruption, trapping these souls in their own deceit. Sixth ditch: hypocrites. Punishments: hypocrites wear golden cloaks that are beautifully crafted on the outside but lined with heavy laden layers on the inside, making the cloaks unbearably heavy. These souls are forced to walk slowly, dragging the weight of their cloaks as they endure the crushing burden of their false appearances. Seventh ditch: thieves. Punishment: the thieves are chased and attacked by snakes that constantly bite them. In addition, the thieves undergo a transformational punishment, where they even change into serpents themselves or snake-human hybrids. The snakes are a symbol of the deceptive nature of theft. Eighth ditch: fraudulent counselors. Punishment: the souls of evil counselors are encased in flames that burn them for eternity. These are the individuals who use their intellect and wisdom to deceive others, leading them astray for personal or political gain. The fire symbolizes the burning desire for power that these souls had in life. Ninth ditch: sowers of discord. Punishment: these souls are mutilated by demons who slash them with swords. The dismembered bodies regenerate only to be torn apart again. The sowers of discord are those who cause division and conflict, whether in religion, politics, or among individuals. The constant mutilation and regeneration symbolizes the eternal consequence of their actions, dividing others forever. And now, the 10th ditch: falsifiers, such as alchemists, counterfeits, and impersonators. Punishment: the falsifiers are afflicted with various forms of diseases and physical decay. Some are covered in scabs and sores, while others are writhing in pain as they suffer from the effects of their falsifications, such as the creation of false currency or false identities. The diseases and rotting represent the corruption and decay caused by their lives and frauds. And there we have that 10 whole ditches full of punishments, but we have the last circle left. Travel with me to the center of hell. Circle 9. Treachery. Frozen in betrayal.
Then I saw 1,000 faces there, blue with the cold. It makes me shudder, and always will, when I think of those frozen shallows.
Reason for entry: betrayal of family, country, guests, or benefactors. Punishment: different depths of ice entrapment depending on the severity of betrayal. So, to our last stop, we arrive, of course, in the 9th circle. Treachery. And it's a place frozen at the very depths of Inferno, hell. And the circle itself is divided into 4 zones. And each of them is worse than the last. The first of these zones is called Cana, and well, it's named after Cain, who unsubscribed his brother, biblically. Either way, the souls who end up in Cana are the ones who betrayed their families, and this is an internally frozen place. And these people are frozen up to their necks in ice and can only move their heads about. The zone beneath that is called Antenora, and that is named after Antenor, a Trojan soldier who betrayed his city for the Greeks. So these are traitors to their homeland or their cities. And they are also, of course, encased in ice. But a little bit further, and they can't move their faces at all. And if we go to the 3rd zone, under that, it's Ptolemy, named after some guy called Ptolemy, who was a governor of Jericho. He invited his father-in-law and his sons to a banquet where he demised them all in a bit of a shh. Well, I guess he didn't tell them before he did it. Betrayal. Yeah. So those who betrayed their guests would end up here in Ptolemy. And how were they encased in this forever ice? Well, they were just trapped even deeper, and their tears would just turn to ice in their ice sockets. So that's also a very fun thing, indeed. And then we come to the 4th zone, the worst ones, Judea, which is, of course, named after Judas. And we all know who Judas is, of course, but if you don't, he's the dude that went and smooched Jesus so that people knew who Jesus was, and he just betrayed the most important man in Christianity, so Judas, hick you. So in Judea, the people who betrayed their benefactors would end up, and they were entirely encased in ice. All of them. Lying there, unable to move anything. Inferno did its things, and it did its things to the maximum. But we're not done. At the very center of the 9th circle, we actually find the man himself, Satan. Yeah, he's there, and he's also stuck in ice. He sports no less than 3 faces. So yeah, he's there, encased up to his waist, and in his side mouths, he's actually gnawing on Brutus and a guy called Cassius, because they were the people who assassinated Julius Caesar. And we all know Dante's big old boy crush on Julius Caesar, so we all kinda knew that his assassinators would end up in the worst place in hell, Inferno. And in his center mouth, he was forever gnawing, biting Judas Iscariot. Yeah, he was just in there, and Dante even put it very prettily that he could see his bones and his flesh ripped off. But of course they can't demise because they're already demised, so these three people, betrayals of their benefactors, they were just being eaten by Satan himself forever and ever and ever. So yeah, that was that. Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any future videos. I love to ramble about macabre and morbid things. And giant thanks to all my lovely members here on YouTube, on my Patreon, and all the support from every last one of you. It warms my heart, my little depressing, anxiety-ridden heart. It grows a few sizes thanks to you. Stay amazing, stay hydrated, and most of all, stay morbid, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!